Welcome to a story you probably haven't heard told this way. A story that begins long before pumpkins, costumes, and trick-or-treat buckets. Long before haunted houses and store-bought decorations. This story stretches back thousands of years. Back then, nights were lit by fires. People wrapped themselves in animal skins to frighten spirits away, and many believed the dead sometimes walked the earth. This is not a ghost story made up for fun. This is the real history behind what we now call Halloween. This tale is full of old secrets, strange rituals, and powerful changes across centuries. And if you are learning English, if you want to improve listening, pronunciation, and vocabulary, you're in the right place. I will speak slowly and clearly, explain important words and phrases, and guide you through every detail. So while you enjoy an epic story, you will also get better English. Ready? Let's begin. Part 1. The Origins of Halloween, before it was called Halloween. The story begins more than 2,000 years ago, not in America, not in Hollywood, not in supermarkets. It begins in a land of fog, forests, and bonfires, the lands of the ancient Celts. These were the people who lived in what is now Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and parts of northern France. We pronounce the word Celts either Celts or Celts. They did not have phones or newspapers. They lived close to nature, the earth, the sky, the wind, and the moon. For the Celts, the year was not measured like ours. Their most important day came at the end of October. October 31st marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold half of the year. This night was called Samhain, pronounced Samhain or Samhain. For them, Samhain was like a New Year's Eve. It was a turning point. On Samhain, the Celts believed the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. The spirit world could touch this world. Ancestors might come back, ghosts might wander, and strange forces could appear. It was both dangerous and magical. Because the night could bring trouble, the Celts took steps to protect themselves. They lit giant bonfires on hilltops. They believed fire had power. It could frighten away harmful spirits and cleanse the land. People brought animal bones to the flames. That is probably where the word bonfire comes from, bonefire. They also wore disguises. Men and women wrapped themselves in animal skins and masks. They did not dress to party. They dressed to confuse spirits, to hide their human shape so ghosts would pass them by. The first Halloween costumes were for survival, not for fun. Families left food outside their homes, apples, nuts, cakes, as offerings to spirits. People hoped a small gift would keep the spirits calm. And because many wanted to know what the future held, Samhain was also a night of fortune-telling, apple games, mirror gazing, and other rituals that tried to reveal what lay ahead. At the center of many Samhain ceremonies were the Druids. The Druids were priests, teachers, and spiritual leaders. They carried staffs, wore robes, and led rituals to protect the community. In some stories, they made offerings, most often animals, and in rare and darker tales, sometimes humans. To the Celts, these rites were not symbolic theater. They were serious, even necessary. Then the world changed. Around 43 AD, the Romans arrived. The Roman Empire was rich, organized, and powerful. The Romans brought their gods, their customs, and their festivals. They did not erase the old ways. Instead, they blended them. Two Roman celebrations joined Samhain in time and spirit. First, Feralia, a Roman day to honor the dead. People visited graves, made offerings, and remembered departed family members in late October. Second, Pomona, a festival for the goddess of fruit and trees. Pomona's symbol was the apple, and this festival is one reason apples later became connected to Halloween games. So Samhain mixed with Feralia and Pomona. Pagan beliefs, Roman rituals, and harvest celebrations merged into something new. Then, in the early centuries AD, another change came: Christianity. Church leaders wanted to convert Europe and often confronted local festivals. Instead of banning popular celebrations, in many places the church repurposed them. They created All Hallows Day, or All Saints' Day, on November 1st, and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. October 31st became the Eve, All Hallows' Eve. Over time, the name shortened to Halloween. This was a smart move. The church offered prayers for the dead and a holy meaning, but many old traditions remained. People still lit fires, still dressed in masks, still practiced fortune-telling. In villages, the religious and folk practices blended. People could go to church and still keep old superstitions alive by night. Across the centuries, Halloween kept evolving. In rural Europe, people baked soul cakes and sang for treats. Children and the poor would go door to door offering prayers for the dead and receive cakes in return, a practice called souling. In Ireland and Scotland, people carved lanterns from turnips and potatoes. These carved vegetables held candles and were set in windows to frighten spirits away. Later, in America, pumpkins replaced turnips. Pumpkins were larger and easier to carve, and they gave us the jack-o'-lantern. Samhain held both fear and hope. It was a night to remember the dead and to protect the living. It was a night of stories and of strange customs. Part 2. Halloween Comes to America. Reinvention and Reinvention. Again, the story travels across the sea in the 19th century with millions of immigrants. Among them were Irish people fleeing hunger and disaster during the Great Potato Famine. Millions left Ireland and settled in American cities like New York and Boston. They brought their songs, their stories, and their Samhain traditions. In the New World, old customs met new conditions. City streets were crowded. Neighborhoods were mixed with many cultures. Halloween slowly changed. At first, many Halloween games were local and sometimes rough. Young people played tricks, soaping windows, tipping over trash cans, and general mischief. This was often called Mischief Night. Communities worried the pranks would get out of hand, so towns began to offer safer, supervised entertainments, costume parades, church parties, and harvest festivals. If children had something fun to do, the thinking went, they would not wreck the neighborhood. Over time, these community celebrations shifted the focus from danger to play. Trick-or-treating grew out of older practices like souling and guising, where children dressed up and performed songs for treats. By the early 20th century, the practice of going door to door for sweets became common in many parts of America. Candy makers took notice. In the 1950s and beyond, manufacturers and shops promoted Halloween as a big shopping holiday. Soon, America's love for sweets made Halloween one of the year's largest candy-selling events. Costumes also changed. Where Samhain costumes had hidden faces to confuse spirits, American costumes began to reflect imagination and entertainment. Children dressed as ghosts and witches, yes, but also as pirates, princesses, superheroes, and cartoon characters. Costumes became a way to try on other identities, to play and pretend. And then came entertainment, haunted houses, horror films, and mass-produced decorations. For teenagers and adults, holiday fun expanded into fear-based attractions. Dark mazes, actors jumping from behind doors, theatrical gore, and elaborate props. Hollywood helped too. Movies like Halloween, 1978, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and other horror films taught new generations to enjoy the thrill of being scared safely. Not all Halloween stories are harmless. Between the 1400s and the 1700s, fear sometimes turned deadly. Women who were healers, herbalists, or midwives were sometimes called witches and persecuted. Communities accused and punished suspected witches. The Salem witch trials in colonial Massachusetts are one of the most famous and tragic examples. Panic led to trials and executions. Remembering those events is important. They show how fear and superstition can cause real harm. Across Europe, too, many creatures of folklore, vampires, werewolves, restless ghosts, all became part of Halloween lore. Each monster explained deep human fears, disease, wild violence, or death. By laughing at monsters and dressing as them, people learned to manage fear. Humor and play softened dread. Urban legends also grew with the modern era. Stories of poisoned candy or organized cults created new anxieties. Many of these stories proved false or exaggerated, but fear is powerful, and rumors spread quickly. For parents, caution is wise, but media-driven panic is often worse than the real risk. Part 3. Halloween. Around the world and the business of fear. While Halloween has roots in the British Isles, the idea of honoring the dead exists in many cultures. These celebrations are not all scary. They are often about remembering and celebrating loved ones. In Mexico, Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, is a colorful and joyful celebration on November 1st and 2nd. Families build altars called ofrendas with photos, candles, favorite foods, and marigolds. They welcome back their ancestors with music and songs. Skulls painted on faces are symbols of respect and memory, not terror. In Japan, the Obon festival in summer honors ancestors. Families clean graves, light lanterns, and welcome returning spirits. In many Catholic countries, Italy, Spain, France, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day are solemn days to visit cemeteries and leave flowers. Other traditions exist across Asia and the Pacific. China has a Hungry Ghost Festival in late summer. The Philippines have Pangangalulawa, similar to Soling, where groups sing for prayers and small gifts. In each place, communities remember the dead, and each culture adds its own color and meaning. Today, Halloween has also become a global phenomenon, a holiday of costumes, candy, parties, and commerce. Stores display costumes and decorations well before October. People spend on masks, props, makeup, and elaborate outfits. Retailers and entertainment companies promote a festive atmosphere. The holiday's commercial side is significant. Billions are spent each year on sweets, decorations, and costumes. But beyond the shopping, Halloween still carries deeper threads. It's a mix of ancient belief and modern play. For some, it's a night to honor ancestors and to remember the thin boundary between life and death. For others, it's a joyful night of make-believe and community. And for many, it is both. There are old superstitions, black cats, haunted houses, witches riding brooms. Some of these ideas are harmful when they lead to real prejudice or fear. For example, black cats sometimes face danger around Halloween because of superstition. Animal lovers remind us to protect pets and treat them kindly. So what has Halloween taught us across centuries? Maybe this: humans need ritual. We need ways to face the unknown, to mark seasonal change, and to remember those we have lost. We also need to play, imagine, and laugh in the face of fear. Something as simple as a carved pumpkin or a child's costume can connect us to old stories. Stories about fire, disguise, and wound healing. Before we end, here are a few useful English words from this story. Samhain, the Celtic festival at the end of October, pronounced Samhain or Samhain. Bonfire, a large outdoor fire, often used in rituals or celebrations. Druid, a Celtic priest or spiritual leader. Soling, the medieval practice of going door to door to request prayers in return for cakes. Jack-o'-lantern, a carved lantern, once made from turnips, now usually carved from pumpkins. Mischief, playful troublemaking. Pranks, guising, dressing up and performing for treats. Ofrenda, a Day of the Dead altar for departed relatives. Halloween is many things: ancient ritual, community festival, horror entertainment, commercial event, and a chance to practice English. Whichever way you experience it, solemn or silly, it remains a powerful human tradition that has changed shape again and again. Thank you for listening. If you're learning English, try reading this aloud slowly. Practice the pronunciations I included, and notice the new vocabulary. Next time you see a carved pumpkin or a child in costume, remember, behind those bright eyes and that funny hat is a story older than Halloween itself. A story of fire, of disguise, of remembering the dead, and of people finding ways to face fear together. Let's end with one last thought. Halloween grew from a need to protect and predict, and it became a way to come together, to celebrate, to remember, and to play. That is a human story that continues every year on October 31st.